All right, so I figured that the easiest way for me to learn all of this is if I teach it. So that's what we're gonna end up doing. So I've already done Unit 1, I finished it today, and I want to start into Unit 2. And what we're doing right now is the North Carolina, this Kaplan 75-hour broker pre-licensing course. So we're gonna get straight into the Unit 2. I won't do Unit 1 because I've already done it, but that's what we're doing. So the learning objectives here are when we're done, we should be able to explain the concept of what bundle of legal rights are, the characteristics of real estate, including riparian rights, and all types of fixtures. And not light fixtures, but fixtures. And we're going to be able to identify items that we may or may not be fixtures by applying all parts of the total circumstances test. And I know that sentence right there is supposed to be confusing because it's supposed to make you say, okay, I don't know those terms, let's learn them. Second thing is we're going to be able to identify different types of freehold estates. These are going to be very nice. They're going to be very important. And then the third one is going to be able to distinguish between forms of concurrent, common interest community, hybrid ownership, etc. And then describing the purpose of and different types of trusts. Lots of terms we've got going on here. And to be honest with you, these mean a lot of things. Accretion, the gradual addition of land by natural forces such as wind or water, agricultural fixtures, items attached to agricultural property, air rights, appurtenance, something added that becomes part of it, such as easement or a fixture. And we'll learn all of this later. So let's get straight into the learning objective of this immediate part. That's the first one that we saw earlier, explaining a bundle of legal rights and all that, and then the concept of property. So the unique nature of property or real estate has given a distinctive set of laws and rights. Even the simplest real estate transaction bring into a complex body of laws, and brokers need to understand that not only the effect of those laws, but also how those laws define property. Because it's very important as a broker. You need to make sure that when you're selling something or you're buying something for someone, or if you are a broker, if you're not, it's fine, but you need to understand what you're selling for the person and what you're buying for the client. So we have here real property is defined as land in Unit 1. Any improvements in the interests, rights, and benefit and the benefits of ownership. So it's also often described as a bundle of legal rights. So this is a legal relationship between the owner and the property. In other words, a purchaser of real estate is actually buying the rights of ownership held by the seller. And in a way, they're kind of like giving power of attorney over land to the person. And the rights of ownership include right of disposition. So I'm gonna write this down. Let me write in my notebook here. I wish you could see it, but this is what we're working with. And I'll write Unit 2, and then I'll write bundle of legal rights. And the bundle of legal rights will consist of these five things below. So you have right of disposition. So the right of disposition is basically the right to sell, will, transfer, or otherwise dispose of or encumber the property. Don't let the last word encumber confuse you. We can easily just do this. Prevented from making quick progress by having to carry. Restrict or burden in such a way free action. So restrict the property. We can kind of estimate that. So I'm going to write sell, will, transfer, dispose, or restrict property. I know restrict isn't the exact word, but it'll help when getting into it. And then you have the right of enjoyment. So that's going to be another thing that you have. It's your land. Enjoy the land that you own, right? Enjoy the that. So you have right of enjoyment. I will probably won't write all of these. Some of them might be like common sense, but we will write the ones I feel like need to be. Um, to use any legal manner to uninterrupted use of the property without interference of any third party claiming superior title. Um, so my question right now, because we just learned this, is the bundle of legal rights a actual term that is used in real estate, or is it just like the term that we're learning of things that we need to make sure we get the right of? Is this bundle something that's spoken of? Because in my head, right, when I'm buying like a property, like if I was buying the property from someone, is bundle of rights described as in the offer? Because I know that with title issues, right of enjoyment, sometimes I've seen that become an issue. I've seen third party people claim superior title, like squatter rights. How does that work with bundle of legal rights? I know that might be different because North Carolina doesn't, I don't think it has squatter rights. But then you have a right of exclusion to keep others from entering or using the property. That makes sense. Right of possession, user occupy, and right of control. So you have the right of the property and its profits within the framework of the law. Um, so I'm gonna write for right of enjoyment, use however legally. And then I'm gonna write here right of exclusion. Exclusion. So basically keeping people out. People out or using the property, you know, like however you want, like from using the property. And then you have a right of possession. And right of possession is very nice because it means you can use or occupy it in any way you see fit to. And then right of control. You have profits the that you want. So the right. Okay. So the concept that's what we have right here. Concept of the bundle of rights comes from an old English law, and population for the most part could not read or write. Therefore, a seller transferred property by giving him a bundle of bound sticks from a tree on the property. This process was referred to as livery of seisin. Seisin? The purchaser who held the bundle also owned the tree from which the sticks came and the land to which the tree was attached. Because the rights of ownership can be separated and individually transferred, the sticks became symbolic of those rights. I like that. Nice tradition we got there. So now we're going to get back into the appurtenance, right? Appurtenance is that thing we were talking about earlier. Um, so appurtenance, let me write that down. This is a real weird word that just doesn't have a natural meaning. So it's kind of one of those like memorize it words. Is defined as a right or privilege that goes with the ownership of land. Okay, what type of right or privilege? Examples of those rights include subsurface, so under the surface, mineral rights, okay, air rights, and water rights. The land may be benefited from an appurtenance easement that will be discussed in Unit 3. An improvement to the property. Okay, so an appurtenance is basically rights or privilege. The reason I think they say privilege is because there's in land, I think you can sometimes have like you can give certain privileges to people that they can have. Like if someone's leasing the land and they want to have mineral rights, you can give them mineral rights for the duration of the lease, which is giving them privilege. You're not giving them the full right. They don't have the they don't have the right away for you from you. The rights or privileges that goes with land specifically. So we're looking at air rights, mineral rights, like anything under really, like the dirt rights, subsurface rights, those things. Um, and then you have your air, mineral, and what? Water. I wonder what happens when you have water that is on your land but is flowing into different land. And then we have an improvement, right? I do like my improvements because these are things that you can add to the property. Utility lines, residential dwelling, and they're also considered an appurtenance, but they are an improvement. These are things that you added, but they are an appurtenance. Um, so the protective benefits of restrictive covenants also runs with the land like other appurtenant rights, and will be covered in Unit 6. Okay. Appurtenance is generally transfer of the property when it's sold to the new owner. Improved land versus improved lot. Improved land and improved lot could have different meaning. Often these terms are used synonymously. However, improved land usually is referred to as land with a structure on it. For example, like a house. An improved lot means that certain basic required services necessary to utilize it are available, such as phone, telephone, electricity, telephone, street access, water access, things like that. An improvement might be building fences. I do understand the difference though, because improved land is like, what did I improve on the land? And then I get the difference because the lot and land, I feel like those words can be intertwined, but I do understand that lot is like, hey, what did you do for the lot? And then this one, that's like, what did you do for the parcel? And then the improved land is like, what did you do for the land itself? What did you add to it instead of what did you add to the stuff under or something like that? And then you're talking about now subsurface and air rights. So surface rights are simply the rights to use the surface of the earth. However, real property ownership also includes the subsurface rights. Those are the rights to use the space under the land below ground level, using that to extract natural resources lying below the earth's surface. Coal, gas, oil, water, any of those minerals are subsurface rights. Transfer of those rights may, however, be accomplished without the transfer of subsurface rights. So surface rights and subsurface rights. So yeah, there you go. You could transfer different rights. So a landowner could sell the rights to any oil and gas found in the land to an oil company, and then he could sell his remaining interest after the sale. The new buyer would own all the property except oil and gas rights. Those would be held by the third party, the oil company. The rights to use the air above the land also may be sold to independently of the land. Such air rights are increasingly important part of real estate, especially large city where air rights over railroads have been purchased to construct huge office buildings, such as the Pan Am building in New York and the Merchandise Mart in Chicago. To construct a building, the developer must purchase not only the air rights but also numerous small portions of the land surface for the building's foundation support, called caissons. Caisson? No. Two S's and then an S here. A large watertight chamber. Interesting. Can I move this? Okay. Until the development of airplanes, properties, air rights were considered to be unlimited. Today, however, the courts permit reasonable interference with these rights, such as those necessary for aircraft, as long as the owner's right to use and occupy is not unduly lessened. Government and airport authorities often purchase air rights adjacent to an airport to provide approach patterns for air traffic. That's interesting. With the continued development of solar, air rights, or more especially sun rights, have been redefined by courts. They consider tall buildings that block sunlight from smaller solar powered buildings to be interfering with smaller buildings' sun rights. Wow. That's interesting. In summary, one parcel of real property may be owned by many people, each holding a separate right to different part of real estate. Imagine splitting all of that between family just to like do it. Like I don't know. That's funny. These rights may be severed by a company's conveyance. For example, while highly unlikely they could exist at the same time, an owner of surface rights, subsurface gas and oil rights, and air rights. Water rights. Oh goodness, is that? Are we about to hear something right? Oh, I like this. Adjacent bodies of water. Riparian rights are granted to owners of land located along the course of a river or stream. Such an owner has the unrestricted right to use the water, provided such use does not harm owners upstream or downstream by interrupting the altered flow of water by contaminating it. In addition, an owner of land that borders a non navigable waterway owns the land. Hmm. Wait, hold on. What do you mean non navigable? Close the land under the water to the exact center. Oh. So if you can't navigate the stream, if but is it adjacent bodies of water? So is the right to use adjacent bodies of water? But where does the lot end? It's weird because is it ownership of land with the unrestricted right to use the water, as long as you don't harm or alter the flow by contaminating it. An owner of land that borders a non navigable waterway owns the land of the water to the exact center of the waterway. In North Carolina, the ownership of water and the land adjacent to it is determined by land adjoining navigable is owned by the banks of the river of North Carolina. Those are like public highways or for boats and stuff, you know. Closely, the literal rights of those owners of lands and ocean bridges, navigable lakes have a tide. Literal rights. What are littoral rights? Um, Rights of property owners whose land borders large navigable bodies of water. Okay. So literal rights enjoy unrestricted use of the land, but own the land adjacent to the water only up to the mean high water mark. Okay. So all the land below this point is owned by the government. Strip of land between the high and low tides called the foreshore belongs to the state of North Carolina. I did not know that. This portion makes every beach in North Carolina a public trust doctrine. Western states follow the doctrine of prior appropriation. The doctrine of prior appropriation is water rights are determined by priority of beneficial use. So that's who has those rights, right? Those are Western states. We have riparian doctrine, so those are basically public trust doctrine. Everyone, you know, The homies. The homies own it, basically. The state. Prior appropriation doctrine states that water rights are determined by the priority of beneficial use. That means the first person to use the water or divert the water for beneficial purpose can acquire the individual rights of the water. So this property owners may have that land that borders the water but have no rights to use that water. Wait, this means that the first person to use water or divert water for a beneficial use or purpose can acquire the individual rights of water. Wait, what? Hold on. Okay, hold on. I need this explained simply. How do I own it? Because this is kind of confusing. So the literal rights. So okay, let's go over doctrine of prior appropriation. In some Western states, the rights are determined by who first uses diverts the water for beneficial. That means if you were the first person to use the water, you have the right to continue using it, even if your property. But how is the first person determined, or what? The first person to use it for benefit determined by a notice first in time, first in right. So the person must put the water to beneficial uses, irrigation, industrial use, or domestic purposes. Claim filing. So you have to file a claim, and then your priority date is established. Approval and permit. Oh wow, I did not know that. That's interesting. And then you have what is called accretion. So this is what we talked about earlier. So the boundaries of land can be affected by natural action of the water, like accretion. All land created by accretion or gradual increase in land from the deposit of soil. The water gradually recedes or disappears permanently. New land is acquired by reliction. And reliction is basically the increase in land due to receding water. So your property line might grow and get smaller. Your land might get bigger. Depending on the time of year, you might want to sell your land at certain parts of the year, because if you get the data at the time of the year where it's just receded, like imagine during a hurricane, you get a guy to come out or like a tsunami, and the water is like really heavily receding, and you got that guy to come out there and measure the land. It's going to be a nice fat acre instead of a 16th or something, or a 20th. I don't know. I'm a nerd. I don't care. Avulsion. So the sudden loss or gain of land, usually due to natural disaster. Okay, so that's literally what I was talking about. Does not change the property boundaries, so the owner has the right to reclaim the lost land. It's so weird because they have to like, I'm stupid and I just like thought about that because I didn't read the next sentence, right? Anyone else who like was like, yeah, let's do it, that's funny that they actually have to describe that. Next is the owner of real property has the right to lateral support or the right to have adjacent property natural boundaries of the land. Therefore, construction or excavation of neighboring property does not cause the soil to subside. And if we look at lateral support is going to be, or what is it? Right to have an adjacent property support the natural boundaries. So if I'm digging, it shouldn't move their land, basically. As discussed previously, occasionally land service subjacent. So you have lateral support, which is like the property adjacent on the top, so it shouldn't cause the soil, and then you have subjacent support. So if you're under, this is for the service of the property from the owner's subsurface rights. If there's an underground mining project, they must assure that the continued support of the land surface. Right. Oh. So he's entitled to it. So if I sell underground rights, I have to have them. Oh, which increases the risk for them because then they have to cover that. But to cover that, I wonder if there's insurance for that. subjacent support for mining companies. Interesting. So, real property versus personal property. So, this is going to be covering some more stuff. So, we already talked about it. Real property is the land, everything attached to land, and everything appurtenant to the land. Personal property is something that is not real property. So, things that you can pretty much move, right? The distinction between them is not like really obvious. For instance, if you have a lumber in the pile of the backyard, is it personal property or part of the real property? What about the drapes or an antique mirror attached to the wall of the house? If this item is considered personal property, they can be taken by the seller and move out of the house. On the other hand, if these items are considered real property, the buyer becomes their new owner and the sellers cannot remove them. Real estate brokers must be really careful to see that both parties to a real estate transaction understand clearly which items are real property and which items are not. This is going to be called conveyance. You have to convey, like items do not convey. In realistic like the market right now, a lot of the times you'll say like washer and dryer do not convey or washer and dryer do convey. You have to say that. But I'm sure they'll say that later in this here. But this is what I understand from my brother of geez, this is a freaking long. Okay. Let's get straight into it. So plants generally fall into one of two classes: trees, perennial bushes, grasses that do not require annual cultivation are considered real property. Annual crops such as um, wheat, corn. Mm, corn vegetable known as blements. As blements. Oh, emblements. Crops that are grown annually are considered real property. Is it real? No, personal property. In a lease situation, a tenant may re-enter the land after the lease termination, if necessary, to harvest crops that result from the tenant's labor. Whoa. If your annual crop is still growing. That's insane! I don't know why. That's so crazy, but that's so cool. That's so interesting. It's actually it's very like friendly to the people. You know, like there's a lot of thought that goes into this. Real estate is very interesting in North Carolina from what I'm seeing right now. That's so interesting. If it doesn't require annual cultivation, it is considered real property. Um, Annual crops such as wheat, corn, vegetables are known as personal property, emblements. But if the crop is like in a lease situation, right? The tenant has put effort to grow these crops. Um, if the crops grew, right, and they're done growing and his lease terminates, he can say, "Hey, I'm the one who put effort into these. Here's the proof. I'd like to go and harvest across the result from my labor." But in a sales transaction, if an annual crop is still growing, it'll be transferred into real property if no special provision is made in the contract. It's possible to change an item from real property to personal property by severance. A growing tree is real estate until the owner cuts the tree down and thereby severs it from the earth. Or an apple becomes personal property once it's picked from a tree. Severance also may be the result of a contract. For example, if the owner of an apple orchard sells the tree crop while it's still ripening, the crop has been severed, even though, and then it's been turned into personal property, even though it's still physically attached to the tree. You can change personal into real. If an owner buys several azalea bushes, fertilizer, and mulch to landscape the front yard, the component parts which were original personal property are converted into real property. They've been annexed. Now we get into fixtures, right? So fixtures are going to be considered the difference between in considering the differences between real property and personal property, it's important to be able to distinguish a fixture and personal property. An item that was once personal property but has been attached, affixed to land or a building that the law construes it to be part of real estate is a fixture. Heating plants, elevator equipment, kitchen and bathroom cabinets, light fixtures, plumbing fixture. If an item is in fixture, it automatically transfers to the property unless excluded in the contract. As a matter of fact, almost any item that has been added to this permanent part of a building is considered a fixture. Um, I guess at what point is it considered a fixture? Oh, now we get into the tests. Huh. Now we're asking the real questions. Jeez, I'm tired. Oh, it's 11:33. How much more do I have of this? Oh, I'm not really that much done in unit 2. We'll finish this page real quick. I mean, we're not almost done. Actually, a lot of it's just images. Okay, we'll do it real quick. So here's the tests, right? So the total circumstances test. Oh, this is the important one. I don't think I'm ready for this. Okay, let's do it. Oh man, I don't want to. Okay, I'm scared. It's a legal test applied by the courts to determine whether the item is a fixture or personal property. All four parts of the test must be applied, but intention is the major part of the test. These four tests are easy to remember by using the mnemonic IRMA. Intention, relationship, method, adaptation. Bruh, what? Intention of the annexer. Did the person who installed the item intend for it to be permanent or removable? Okay. So court looks at that evidence, not only the parties subject intent. In other words, the court looks in the facts surrounding the situation to determine what the person would have intended by them. Relationship of the annexer. Is the person making the attachment an owner or a tenant? If the owner, then it's going to be permanent. Tenant usually is a temporary. So the greater the legal relationship of the annexer, the greater likelihood declared a fixture. Huh, that's interesting. Sorry, I'm reading number 4 and it's very interesting. Method of annex. Oh man, I'd love for this to be true that I'm about to say. This would be such a good, like, comeback. I don't like making people feel bad or negative, but I like taking what's, like, right, like justice. Justice. So I'm going to get to it in a minute, what I'm talking about. Method of annexation. How permanently was the item attached? Can it be removed without causing damage? To what degree has there been customization of the item? It was custom made, or not custom, but yeah, it can be custom. It was a custom made for the house, right? Built-in refrigerator, microwave ovens, making them more considered to be a fixture. Adaptation to real estate. Has either of these things been facilitated to work together? For example, if a gas station owner sells his business, it would be the buyer's expectation that the underground gas storage tanks would remain with the property, since the tanks are necessary for business to function. I low-key want to take him to court. So, in the example that someone has leased, and then after the lease, they are expected to take the gas tanks, that should be taken to court, right? So I want to look at the example of a lease. Then after the lease, the owner of the property asks them to take the gas tanks out. So the terms of a lease agreement is going to need to specify improvements or fixtures installed. And if the lease states that the tenants must remove them at the end of the lease, then he's obligated to do so. But if it doesn't state that, right, um, fixtures, those are going to be considered a permanently attached item, right? They're going to usually say um, items that are installed by the tenant are going to be those temporary ones. So those are going to fail the total circumstances test. Um, in a Like if the gas tanks were there before the tenant got there, and then the owner required for them to take it after the lease. So if the storage tanks were existing, the tenant took possession, they're considered part of real estate. So the tenant would not be responsible for the removal unless explicitly stated in the lease agreement. Um, if requiring the tenant to remove those fixtures that were already in place might be considered unreasonable unless it was a condition. Tenants are usually expected to return the property in the condition it was received, minus normal wear and tear. So lease terms do prevail though, because if the lease requires that the tenant remove the tanks, that means the tenant has to do that. If the tenant does not, if the lease doesn't like have that, then you're not expected to. Alarms, security systems, range stoves, antennas, basketball goals, permanently attached or in ground. Um, attached microwaves, built-in appliances. Anything that looks like it has intention to stay, it's probably going to stay. You should ask, though. Ceiling or wall attached fans, like things like that, including existing bulbs. Wow. Fireplace insert, gas logs or starters, attached fireplace screens, wood or coal stoves, floor coverings, attached fuel tanks, whether attached or buried, and the contents that are in it. Garage door openers with all controls. I'll do these activities tomorrow. But that'll be it pretty much for this unit. That's about half of unit 2. We'll finish the other half tomorrow. I just wanted to get a good start. This is a good 40-minute video that I was able to start, and we'll get right into the unit 2 total circumstances test with Irma. Intention, what is it? Intention, relationship, method, adaption. So those are the things. Hope you enjoyed this video, and check in tomorrow for the second part of this.